You are still 20 minutes from home, stuck at a red traffic light. Your house is quiet, your dog is asleep on the couch. Then, for no reason you could ever point to, it lifts its head. It gets up, walks to the front door, and quietly sits down. Nothing happened. No car outside, no key, no footsteps in the hallway. You are still 4 kilometers away, on a road it cannot possibly hear. And yet the dog is already waiting, ears up, tail slowly moving. By the time you finally park outside, it has been sitting there for minutes. Almost every dog owner has seen this happen. Almost nobody can actually explain it. So here is the real question. What exactly does your dog know? Because on paper, this should be completely impossible for a domestic animal. Your dog has no clock, no phone, and no calendar anywhere in the house. It cannot read your work schedule or check the traffic on your route home. It has never once seen the actual road that you drive home on. It does not know what a Tuesday is or what overtime even means. You would think it would simply sleep until the front door actually opened. That is what a purely reactive animal would do. Wait for the trigger. But dogs do not wait for the trigger. They arrive before it. In 1994, a researcher began filming a small terrier named Jaytee for exactly this reason. Over dozens of recorded trials, that dog moved to the window early again and again. Not sometimes, not by luck. Early enough that statisticians started publicly arguing about it. Think about that for a second. A very ordinary dog beat the arithmetic. And 30 years later, people still cannot agree on why it happens. Here is the thing nobody tells you about this particular little mystery. It is not one thing, it is never one thing. There are at least 4 separate systems running quietly inside that animal. A body clock, a pair of ears you would genuinely struggle to believe, a nose that reads an empty room the way you read a spreadsheet, and one much stranger idea that turns time itself into a smell. We will take them in order, easiest first and weirdest last. Let us go. Start with the boring answer, because the boring answer is at least partly right. Your dog runs a circadian rhythm, the same 24-hour cycle that you do. It is a real biological clock, driven by light, temperature, and hormone cycles. Body temperature rises and falls. Cortisol quietly climbs every single morning. Hunger arrives on schedule. Sleep pressure builds at roughly the same steady rate. None of that requires a wristwatch. It is simply chemistry keeping time. Every mammal on Earth runs some quiet version of this same internal timer. So if you leave at 8 and return at 6 almost every weekday, your dog's body begins flagging that window without any conscious counting at all. Add associative learning on top of that, and the picture gets much sharper. Dogs are relentless pattern machines. They quietly log absolutely everything that repeats. The school bus that passes at 5:25, the neighbor's squeaking metal gate, the angle of afternoon sunlight sliding slowly across the kitchen floor tiles, the heating switching on, the rubbish truck, the upstairs shower running. Each one of those is a free timestamp, and your dog collects all of them. It does not need to know that the time is 6 o'clock. It only needs to know that the school bus has already gone past. Behaviorists call this time-place learning, and it is well documented in animals. Rats do it. Birds do it. Your dog happens to be very good at it. It is not intelligence exactly. It is bookkeeping, done automatically, all day long. Here is a small and slightly insulting thought experiment for you to sit with. You are probably not the event that your dog is actually tracking. You are the reward that arrives at the end of a sequence of events. The sequence is what it watches. You simply show up at the end. Now this explanation is genuinely strong, and it covers an enormous number of dogs. But it has one enormous hole in it, and every single owner knows it. Plenty of people work completely irregular hours with no fixed daily pattern whatsoever. Shift workers, nurses, drivers, freelancers who come home whenever the work finally finishes. Their dogs still do it. Sometimes their dogs do it noticeably better. And the dog was never once told when the shift was going to end. A clock simply cannot explain a schedule that has no shape at all. So something else is running alongside the clock. 2 things, in fact. And the first of them is sitting right on the side of your dog's head. You are a terrifyingly loud animal, and you have absolutely no idea. A human ear tops out at roughly 20,000 hertz on a good day. A dog's hearing runs to about 45,000 hertz, and sometimes considerably higher. Some studies push that upper limit all the way towards 60,000 hertz. That is an entire register of the world that you have never once heard. And it is not only pitch, it is distance, and distance is really the point. Dogs can detect sounds roughly 4 times further away than you possibly can. Their sharpest sensitivity sits somewhere between 4 and 10 kilohertz. That range happens to include small movements, small mechanisms, and small metal parts. Now think about what your car actually is, acoustically speaking, from the outside. It is a machine with a completely specific and unrepeatable mechanical signature. Engine note, belt whine, a rattle in the exhaust that only yours has. The suspension hitting the exact same dip in your street every single evening. You cannot pick your own car out of traffic by sound. Your dog can. Owners report this constantly, and the timing lines up almost perfectly every time. The dog stands up when the car turns into the road, not the driveway. That is often 30 to 60 seconds of apparent prophecy, explained entirely by ears. And cars are only the obvious example here. There is a much quieter one. Your footsteps are a signature too: weight, rhythm, stride length, and shoe type. The exact interval between one heel strike and the very next one. A dog can separate your footsteps from a stranger's on the very same stairs. It has heard yours 10,000 times already. It has a working template. Then there is a whole extra layer that you cannot perceive at all. The garage door motor priming, the gate latch 2 whole houses down the road. The particular click your key makes against the other keys in your pocket. Here is the uncomfortable part. If you enjoy feeling mysterious to your own pet, a large chunk of canine psychic ability is simply much better hardware. Your dog is not predicting the future. It is hearing the present further away. Think about that for a second. The event has already actually happened. You simply were not equipped to notice that it had happened yet. But hearing has a hard limit, and it is a limit of basic physics. Sound falls apart with distance. 4 kilometers is far, far too far. And plenty of dogs start waiting long before any car is anywhere near. So we need something with a far longer memory than sound has. Something that lingers inside a room for hours after it was first made. Your dog does not really live in a house. It lives inside a smell. The numbers here are genuinely quite hard to hold in your head. You have roughly 6 million olfactory receptors sitting inside your nose. A dog has up to 300 million of them, 50 times more. And receptors are only half the story. The processing power matters far more. The part of a dog's brain devoted to smell is roughly 40 times larger proportionally. Estimates put canine scent detection at 10,000 to 100,000 times better. Dogs can pick up some compounds at parts per trillion. Parts per trillion. That is one single drop of something in 20 Olympic swimming pools. So what does all of that actually buy them, sitting alone at home? It buys them a room that is constantly telling them a story. You leave a scent trail everywhere. On the floor, the handle, the chair. Every surface that you touched is now broadcasting and slowly getting quieter. Your dog can also smell things arriving from outside of the house entirely. Air moves, scent travels. Doors and windows leak absolutely constantly. Under the right wind, a dog can catch a person's scent hundreds of meters away. Tracking dogs follow trails that are hours old, and sometimes several days old. Search dogs locate people buried under meters of broken concrete and dust. That is not a party trick. That is a working sensory instrument. And it does one more thing that we almost never stop to think about. A dog can tell which direction a scent trail is actually running in. It does that by reading strength. Weakest is oldest, strongest is newest. Read that sentence again, because it is quietly enormous. Your dog is not only smelling what happens to be there right now, it is also smelling how long that thing has already been there. Smell for a dog has a built-in timestamp attached to every part of it. We use smell for pleasure. Coffee, rain, warm bread, somebody's old jacket. A dog uses smell the way that you use a calendar and a map. It is the difference between hearing a song and reading the sheet music. So a dog alone in an empty house is not really bored exactly. It is sitting inside a slowly changing document, and it can read it. Hold on to that idea, because we are coming back to it at the end. Because it turns out to be the key to the strangest explanation of all. Now here is a question that sounds simple and absolutely is not. Does your dog know the difference between 1 hour and 4 hours? For a very long time, the popular answer to that was a confident no. Dogs live entirely in the moment, people said. No past, no future. It is a lovely idea. It is also, fairly clearly, wrong. In 2011, a pair of researchers in Sweden ran a very neat experiment. Reen and Keeling worked with 12 privately owned dogs, none with separation problems. The owners left the house for one of 3 carefully set durations: half an hour, then 2 hours, and then 4 hours away. Cameras rolled from 10 minutes before leaving to 10 minutes after returning. Then they measured the greeting, not whether it happened, but how intense it was. The result was clean, and it changed how people talk about this. The longer the owner had been gone, the bigger the greeting became. More tail wagging, more lip licking, more whole body shaking. The dogs also initiated physical contact with their owners after longer absences. 4 hours produced a measurably different reunion than half an hour did. That only works if the dog registered the difference somehow, somewhere inside. Something inside that animal was quietly keeping score while you were away. Let us be honest about what this does and does not prove. It does not mean your dog counted the hours like a prisoner scratching walls. It means the length of your absence left a real physical mark behind. Maybe in hormone levels, maybe in accumulated arousal, maybe in the scent itself. But it registered. Duration is real to a dog, not invisible. And that is the piece the old live-in-the-moment story completely missed. Because if a dog can feel how much time has actually passed, then a dog can also notice when enough of it has finally passed. That is not prediction at all. That is a threshold being crossed. It is the difference between guessing and simply getting a notification. Which brings us to the single most argued about dog in scientific history. His name was Jaytee. He was a terrier in the north of England. His owner, Pam Smart, noticed he went to the window before she came home. Not at a set time either. She worked genuinely irregular hours. Her parents kept noticing it too, so they started writing it all down. In 1994, the biologist Rupert Sheldrake heard about this particular dog. Sheldrake is a genuinely controversial figure, and we will get to that honestly. But the setup he built was, on the face of it, properly testable. 2 synchronized cameras, one trained on the dog, one trained on the owner. The owner was told to head home at a randomly chosen time. She had no way at all of knowing that time in advance. Neither did anybody who was back at the house with the dog. Then you simply measure how much time the dog spends at the window. Across a pre-planned series of 12 randomized trials, the pattern was stark. During the main period of absence, Jaytee was at the window 4% of the time. During the period when his owner was actually traveling home, 55%, 4%, and then 55%. That is not a subtle difference. Sheldrake reported the effect as being highly statistically significant. Then the skeptics arrived, and this is where it gets genuinely interesting. In 1998, the psychologist Richard Wiseman ran his own tests with Jaytee. Wiseman is a well-known debunker of exactly this kind of claim. He filmed the dog, while a colleague traveled with the owner instead. Return times were randomly selected, 4 experiments at one flat, 1 elsewhere. Wiseman then announced that the dog had comprehensively failed the test. The story went out widely. Psychic dog debunked. Case closed. Except look closely at the numbers that Wiseman himself actually recorded. 4% at the window during the main period of absence, 48% of the time during the pre-return period, and 78% of the time during the return itself. That is, broadly speaking, the same shape that Sheldrake had already reported. The disagreement was not really about the data at all. It was about the pass mark and about who got to set it. Wiseman used a criterion based on the dog's first significant trip to the window. Sheldrake argued that this criterion threw away almost all of the recorded behavior. 2 researchers, 1 dog, nearly identical numbers, completely opposite headlines. Let us be honest here. This is not a settled scientific question. Sheldrake's wider theories are firmly rejected by most working biologists. Single dog studies are weak evidence, however carefully they happen to be filmed. And no large, independent, well-controlled replication has ever really nailed this down. But the raw observation did not vanish just because the interpretation was disputed. Something in that dog's behavior tracked something about its owner's journey. The question was never whether it happened. It was what actually caused it. So let us be properly honest about the whole picture here. Your dog is not psychic, and the evidence does not require it to be. There is a large, unglamorous reason all of this looks more impressive than it is. You remember the hits. You do not remember the misses at all. Every time your dog sat at the door and you walked in, that was memorable. Every time it sat there and nothing at all happened, that was forgotten. Dogs go to windows constantly. It is one of their main hobbies. Some of those trips will coincide with your arrival by pure chance alone. There is also the other person in the house, if there is one. People check the clock, tidy up, and get subtly restless before somebody returns. Dogs read human body language considerably better than we read theirs. A single unconscious glance at the window can start the whole performance. None of that makes your dog less impressive. It makes it considerably more. It is not breaking physics. It is running much better instruments than you are. Which brings me to the very last idea, and it is the strangest one. It comes from Alexandra Horowitz, who studies dog cognition at Barnard College. The story starts with a dog called Donut and a yellow school bus. Donut would get up and go and wait shortly before the boys came home. The same routine, every single school day, for years on end. Horowitz's explanation does not involve clocks or ears or anything you would expect. The boys' scent filled the whole house every morning while they got ready. Then they left, and that scent began to decay, slowly and steadily. Molecules dispersed, settled, and drifted with the air currents in the rooms. By late afternoon, their smell had faded to a very particular level. The same level every single day, because the absence was the same length. The dog was not reading a clock at all. It was reading a concentration. When your smell drops to a certain strength, that is simply home time. That is not a metaphor. That is a chemical measurement taken by a nose. Your dog is not waiting for you. It is watching you evaporate. Horowitz is careful to call this a hypothesis, not an established finding. Nobody has actually run a proper controlled study on it yet. But it explains the irregular schedule dogs in a way that clocks simply cannot. And it reframes the entire thing, completely, in a single sentence. Your dog is not predicting the future. It is measuring the past, precisely. So picture it once more. 20 minutes from home, red light, nothing happening. Except a room where the air has been quietly thinning all day long. A pair of ears sorting the whole street into familiar and unfamiliar. A body that has been running a slow chemical countdown since the morning. And an animal that has been reading all of it without any effort. It is not magic. It is a different way of being inside a room. You come home and think your dog somehow knew you were coming. It did not. It knew you were going, and it noticed when you stopped. All day long, that quiet house was telling it a story about you. It simply finished the last page slightly before you opened the door. More animal answers like this one, whenever you happen to want them.